Okay, so start recording in three, two, and one. All right, and welcome back to the Reserve Squad Midweek Show, a soccer podcast covering all things in the EPL from a bench perspective. And I'm your host, Ben, and the EPL is on a break, so this is going to be a USMNT episode that we have covered the men's national team a few times on here, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're kind of poor. But this was a pretty big window. We finally had that October stretch when we knew we were going to face some pretty good teams with the U.S. and with Germany and Ghana. And while Ghana is maybe struggling a little bit, we did get a pretty good test versus Germany. And in general, I'm in the mind that this was really important. It was important to finally see kind of our A team or like Nations League kind of team. This wasn't a Gold Cup roster. We finally got to test ourselves and to see really gauge where we are. And over the course of the two games, I do think there's some positives to take away. I mean, we also went into like how is Berhalter going to change, and I think he has. I think he has changed a little bit, and I don't know if BJ Callahan has had some influence or not. But I'm going to get into it. I think we're seeing a different shape and maybe some different tactics. Though that said, they're still the old Berhalter that is still there, and we're still seeing some remnants of that in some of these second halves. I think that's been a little bit of a theme as well. So what I'm going to do is quickly go over the Ghana game because I haven't really gotten a chance to rewatch it. I watched it in real time and then followed highlights. With the Germany game, we watched it a couple of times, so that'll be a little bit more in depth. I mean, with Ghana. We beat them 4-0 and really all four goals in the first half. Brace from Gio Reyna, he gets the first one. Then Pulisic, a PK. This was also caused by Gio Reyna. And then Balogun has a really clever turn and shot. This was caused by us kind of pressing them into some trouble. And then it's a really good pass by Tim Weah. And then Balogun sets us up by the turn he does. It's a really good turn, and he deserved that goal. And I thought Balogun was way more involved Weah as well, way more involved than we saw in the first game. I think he only had 17 touches versus Germany. We were really struggling to find him. We were looking for him in this game, and he was making good runs in both games, and we finally found him. And Balogun has maybe staked. There are a few players that have really had a good a good two games here. Balogun's one of them. I think Balogun's actually separated himself a little bit from Pepe, and Gio Reyna would be another. And so we went into this with it was a little different than what we saw versus Germany. So we saw Dest back on his right side, not at left back. We saw Lund come in at left back, and I thought he had a pretty good game as well. Ghana were just really poor. It's hard to necessarily gauge this, but it allowed Dest to kind of be in the position he likes being apparently. And man, did he fly! He was maybe player of the game. People maybe say, could say Gio. That could be a fair argument as well. And then the main thing was we saw Chris Richards and Miles Robinson, and this maybe could have been the center back pairing we had going into the World Cup had Miles Robinson and Richards not actually gotten hurt, prior to it. And I'm not necessarily the biggest Miles Robinson fan, but the main thing that I saw was we tried Tim Ream versus Germany, and we were significantly more passive in the kind of the back line and the positions we were taking. And also, when Germany were kind of running at us, our first instinct was to run backwards, not to actually engage. In this game, you saw Richards and Robinson both being a way more aggressive, trying to win the ball higher up. When someone is maybe challenging or dribbling, the first instinct was to go at them, not necessarily run backwards. And that effectively showed. That showed up a lot. And so, going forward, I would maybe like to see this more, to be honest. We need to think Tim Ream is what, 37, 38, and he's starting to look it. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be called up anymore. I think he could come on as kind of like a bench option, maybe get some minutes there. I think he'd be great for locker room vibes. It's good to have vets, but he should not be starting games, especially we don't have many games where we're going to actually be able to test ourselves first, real quality opposition before Copa, before this next big tournament that we have. And we need to find out what our back line is going to be. And one thing that I did not like what Berhalter did in the lead up to the World Cup is he constantly changed it. He constantly did that with his goalkeeper as well. We need to have some consistency going into this, and I hope this will be kind of a change. It's also we've been seeing Cameron Carter Vickers coming in to the squad all of a sudden. I'd like to maybe see him maybe get some minutes as well. But we need to keep that in mind, especially yeah, you just can't play with slow center backs, especially passive center backs. If you're going to try to be a team that presses to win the ball back, that's been a theme I've hit pretty much every single episode this season. And it doesn't really matter what team you're covering. It's kind of the true for each one. Um, so I think that was a big theme. And another thing that was interesting was we saw Yunus Musa. We saw him in both games, but we saw him with Johnny Cardozo. Paired instead of McKinney. And basically, Musa and Cardozo are different players. I think Musa can maybe be kind of a hybrid, but to me, McKennie is kind of an attacking-minded midfielder. I mean, he does seem to have a well-rounded game. Sometimes he even apparently at Juventus, he sometimes even played as like a wingback. But his idea it seems to be to carry the ball, get forward with it, be advanced with it. He doesn't necessarily seem to be kind of a holding ball winner, in my opinion. And that's kind of what we need. And in this game, we almost saw two sixes, and we allowed Giorena to have kind of a free will. We allowed him to have what they call a cam, central attacking mid role. But Gio also he would go wherever the space was to give overloads. If the ball was on the other side, he had freedom to run on that side as well. And he was doing a pretty good job, in my opinion, without the ball. He was working well to help win it back and to help if a Ghana player had the ball and maybe Cardozo was on him, Gio was coming in to offer some help. He did that a number of times. So I really enjoyed watching this, and going forward, again, I'm going to want to see this more. If Berhalter wanted to maybe try Giorena in some of these games, and where maybe he wouldn't have necessarily had his best moments because he hasn't been playing a lot for Dortmund, it would have been easy for Gio to actually be relatively poor in these two games, and the fact that he wasn't, I think he's put Berhalter in a bit of a situation where he's got to play him now, no matter what going forward. And then the front line we saw Weah, Balogun, and Pulisic. And with Ghana, I mean, I don't necessarily want to go over the whole lineup, but I mean, this team did have Jordan Ayew, it had Mo Kudus, it had Thomas Partey, it had Inaki Williams, and on paper at least, it's not. It doesn't look like it should be a bad team. But they just played like they haven't necessarily played together that well. And it seems they didn't necessarily play well versus Mexico. Mexico beat them on Saturday before this, and man, did they really not show up in this game. And it's not good. Their manager is Chris Hughton, a name that I had heard in a long time. He was managing at Newcastle for a bit, and he was always doing well. He was always liked in kind of the UK press. I remember that. I remember him also. His time at Brighton was weird because he kept them up, but he was fired for keeping them up. And I remember that was a bit of a sticky stretch. And the funny thing is I'm fairly certain the guy that replaced him was Graham Potter. So that's going just a little history lesson. But just to go with the timeline. We have a chance. We're just in the first couple of minutes, and it's an early Balogun shot. And maybe Balogun could have done better. But what I really liked here is the ball is won by Cardoso. And then he has a very good through pass to Balogun in the penalty area. We weren't trying this kind of pass for Germany, so I don't know if Berhalter got to them or someone got to them, but they were finally starting. They were finally playing, risky, through passes that they just they weren't doing in other games. And also, Johnny Cardoso didn't necessarily play that many minutes for versus Germany. But before this, Giorena had a wonderful touch to win a 50-50 ball down. It's nice skill here as well because he's another player maybe tries to take this and maybe a poor touch and it's a lost ball. So early on you saw some good things. And then a note I had very very early on was the starting position of Ghana's center backs was significantly further back than what Germany was doing. And so I mean there was a massive gap in their quote unquote midfield, and then you had your front attackers were really high up as well, and then there's a little gap between the midfield, and then Thomas Partey was like behind that, and it was just him, and then like 20 yards behind him, that's where the center backs were kind of starting and standing, and even when Donna was able to kind of half sustain possession a little bit, they weren't really venturing past the halfway line, and the ball wasn't moving nearly as quickly as Germany was doing. But another thing too is just they weren't imposing themselves and they weren't trying to win the position battle the way Germany kind of pretty much forced us back in. And that to me was a giant, giant change. And so, I mean, that was one of the big reasons why I think this was a lot different. Ghana was kind of playing a I don't want to necessarily they're playing passive because they had 4 attackers that were really high up against our back line. Essentially, they were trying to push us back, but they weren't because not everyone was together. They weren't adding in the back line as well. There was a lot of gaps, and there was a lot of space for us to kind of just have fun with the ball when we got it back, and we did. And so we get the first goal with Gio Reyna in the 12th minute, and it's a great desk run, and it's a clever little link up play with him and Balogun. Balogun does a flick play to get Dest the ball right back, allowing him to get past players on the run, and then he passes it to Balogun, who also continued his run. Well, after Balogun did that flick, he spun around his defender and was able to get behind him. And Balogun got it on the wing and across it in. He's maybe even trying to go for Pulisic at the back post, and it deflects. They Ghana guy gets a foot on it and deflects right into Gia's path, and it's an easy finish. And then we have another chance for Balogun in the 15th minute, and it's a desk cross this time. Balogun gets the flick, and it's just right at the keeper. But immediately you're seeing we look different. Dest is getting higher up. Balogun is getting the ball a little bit more. They're looking for him. And then we get the second goal early on. I think it's the 20th minute with Christian Pulisic. It's PK. Tim Weah draws the foul, but I want to highlight this, and Pulisic bears a PK. But I want to highlight this because earlier on, Gio Reyna does really well under pressure. So he's being pressed, and he basically spins his defender while keeping the ball, and then he gets it to Tim Weah, and then Weah shows really great feet here to collect the ball, and then he evades a defender trying to stab at him before being brought down by the other guy. So Weah did very well here as well. And then we get the third one with Balogun, and we win the ball high in the penalty area. This is probably Berhalter's best favorite goal. So we win the ball high in the penalty area. We forced them to pass backwards as well. So we pitched them off from there, and then after a bad touch by their left back, Way is able to get it, and then Balogun is there to offer support, and Weah plays him in, and Balogun has a very lovely turn to set the shot up, and then he fires it into the corner. If Balogun tries a different turn, maybe the shot doesn't even come off. So the turn was important. That allowed him to set up the shot, and then it's a great finish, a great left foot finish into the corner. But we were winning the ball back much faster in this game. We were contesting more passes with our back line, the forward line, one possession back more times as well than what we saw for Germany. We allowed Germany to just play 600 passes around us for fun. We did not. So I don't. Again, there could be the two things could be true. Uh, we could have taken a look at some film, and Berhalter told him to ship up, or Ghana maybe just it's not Germany, and that kind of showed up. But a note I had early on, 20, 25 minutes is Gio Reyna was putting on a show, and we just finally have someone that can collect the ball under pressure, turn on it, and advance it upfield, a carry or pass. Now McKennie can maybe do this as well, but I don't think McKennie has the vision to have the pass, to have the through balls that I think Gio has. And another thing that was good to see was we saw Tim Weah getting way more free and getting played a lot more. And we saw Dest making some runs and being a lot more involved. It was clear Dest enjoyed playing on the red side more than the left. And he wasn't just playing down the wing. Dest was, someone sometimes cutting inside, playing inverted. We had a lot more. We weren't as stagnant in our positions as we've been in so many games. And again, I don't necessarily know if Berhalter was just like, "Go have fun, guys, just do it," or they were instructed to drop what they've been doing in the past. But there was a change here. And then we have a chance for Pulisic. It's in on goal, can't beat the keeper. It's a shame because this is a very good link up play set up by Balogun. It's a lovely pass by Balogun first to collect the ball, and he lays it off to Dest again. This little combination play was very good. And then Balogun spins around his defender to get in front of him, and Dest plays a nice ball over the top to find Balogun's run. And then from there, Balogun is in, and it's a square pass into the box for Pulisic, and Pulisic just can't finish. And then we get to the fourth goal, and it's just kind of a strange, indirect kind of free kick in the 6-yard area. Basically, a Ghana player fell on the ball and just wasn't getting up to do anything with it. So that's the reason. And then the direct free kick, we've got to have a couple. We've got to first have a player touch it before the second guy can get the shot off. And what we did is we passed it quick to Pulisic. Pulisic did a nice little touch to Gio Reyna, and he was able to pass it into the net. Um, but the way we get the free kick, I think, is really good play by us again. So Lund here has the ball and passes it to Giorena. Gio then turns. He's immediately under pressure, but he's able to cut away from the defender, and then he has his head up, and he plays Pulisic making a run, and he's threading a forward ball for Pulisic to make that run in behind. And so again, we weren't seeing this kind of vision and play. Not just versus Germany. We've lacked to see this kind of stuff in a lot of our games. And to be fair, it's also different when you're going against I guess I want to say mid-level teams, but I guess teams where you just know you're more talented. When teams are really sitting in a more of a deep block, you aren't necessarily able to play these kind of passes. But just in general, the way uh, th- this one, this was eye opening in a positive way. And again, I'm gonna ignore the scoreline, and Ghana made it easy for us. It's worth saying that, but just you watch and the way that some of the chances that we created, the vision, the pace that we showed, but also the clever feet, and we were just we looked like a footballing side in this game. And again, it could be just a one-off. But and we weren't necessarily terrible in the first half. We were kind of showing a little. We were showing glimpses of being able to do this. And Balogun was making pretty good runs against their back line against Germany as well. And we just weren't necessarily feeding him and playing him. We also, I didn't feel like, had a back line that we should have played. And the change in back line, I think, helped. And I liked the little tweak of playing two kind of number sixes to win the ball back. And Johnny Cardoza, I knew he was a decent ball winner, and we need another reason to think about this is no Tyler Adams maybe for the foreseeable future. We need to have someone just in case for him. And so I knew Johnny Cardoza was playing it well for International. I thought he was just a ball winner. He was 35 or 36 for passing the ball and was progressive with it. So he really he showed up in a way I wasn't really expecting. And then finally, Ghana has his first chance in the game. It's a great kudos shot. It's a great Matt Turner saves. But the halftime thought was Gio Reyna needs to start for us next summer. I thought Balogun was more involved and Weah was more involved, and it was a good response by us. But Ghana in general was really poor. I think they even mentioned that in the halftime show. They had one shot. They had no passing rhythm to me. The sloppy turnovers, and I didn't feel like they had an action to press organized to win the ball back. So again, it's you only go against a team in front of you. A team can make it easy for you, but at the same time, you still have to make the right passes. You still have to have the right touches under pressure to make it count. And we finally added that. And then the second half was kind of meh. We did have a couple chances. Maybe it could have been better. Tim Weah had a chance where it was a terrific pickup by Weston McKennie. It's a nice little long ball over the top. McKennie came on for Jay Reyna. I didn't feel he was necessarily the same player, but he had some nice vision here to play Weah in behind. We were getting in behind them for fun. It is worth saying that. It is funny because in the beginning, their defensive position was like uh, really back, but they were playing their fullbacks super, super high up. So it was kind of Ghana was unorganized, and we were able to capitalize on that. But I do think, and the game changed obviously with a lot of the subs. We had Pepe come on, we had Pulisic go off, so Aronson and Pepe and Aronson came on, and it was basically four players that were responsible for the four goals went off at halftime. So and you're coming in with a game that is already 4-0. Maybe the motivation wasn't necessarily there, and we did see us kind of stagnate a little bit more. I think we only had like 9 shots total, and 7 came in the first half, so that kind of showed up a lot. But for me, it's 2 games in a row where taking off Gio Reyna at halftime, it changed us. So I think that's worth keeping in mind. Um, but the other thought I had was we're finally starting to see a few guys separate themselves. Maybe stake a claim for a consistent 11 spot. Coming in when we think of Copa, and Balogun and Gio Reyna definitely come to mind. They can add themselves, I think, with Pulisic and Weah. Um, and until Adams gets back, I think Cardozo needs to get some more playing time just to kind of see what he can offer a little bit more. And then I think it would be Musa and or McKennie battling for that other mid spot. But the other thing was Chris Richards and Miles Robinson, that back line, I want to see that more. And we're not going to necessarily be able to see it versus a lot of quality sides before the Copa, which is really unfortunate. So again, I do feel like Berhalter messed up by not trying at least one of them in the first half versus Germany, and then maybe Team Ream in the second half. Um, that is a little 'cause, when I get to the Germany game, Remy is going to be a bit of a theme that I touch on. Um, but I do think at least in this game, before I get to the Germany game, we were looking to get Weah and Balogun way more involved than I thought. So that was a good change. And then maybe player of the game was Dest. Just kind of the runs he was doing. He was had good vision. He was going long, but also going short. And he was just kind of a second creator essentially for us. He was an additional midfielder and he was an additional outlet. And so that was quite good to see. Um, and it just didn't necessarily work on the left side. We tried him on the left side versus Germany, and when we would get to that, you know, him and Scally did not necessarily that partnership didn't necessarily work out either. So when we get to the shots, it's 13 for us, 8 on target, 9 shots in the first half. So there we go. Ghana only had 7 and then 2. We had 6 big chances also. The passing was a little bit surprising. Ghana ended up with 506 passes with 90% accuracy. Watching that live, I didn't feel like that was the case. But yeah, when the game was 4 over, or was 4-0 at halftime, you kind of assumed it was going to be a little bit more. Maybe we'll just sit back. Maybe we'll not be as aggressive. So that kind of maybe played into it. But it also didn't feel like they had nearly as much of that possession inside our own half as Germany did. I need to find a stat to find out how many passes a team completes in the final third. That to me means a lot more than just passes overall. Um, so I mean, Ghana were poor, but I the thing that's weird is I didn't feel like we did a whole lot different versus Germany than we did here. I did feel like we were more aggressive in our approach to win the ball back, and I do think the back line changed, and Cardoso was a good decision. But I think with Gio, the shape changed. We clearly played a 4-2-3-1. We had 2 defensive sixes, playing behind him, 2 ball winning sixes playing behind him that weren't liable on the ball. Musa and Cardoso were both, they get the ball and they were able to do clever turns and be able to find feet. Uh, sometimes sometimes the six is just kind of a ball winner, and maybe the only thing he can do is pass sideways, pass safe, pass backwards. We weren't doing that. So that was good to see. And then, when Gio came off, I thought we kind of did revert back to a 4-3-3, and I thought we kind of did something similar versus Germany after when we brought on Luca Della Torre, and so uh, maybe someone that didn't even play had a pretty good 2 games here because other than Gio Reyna, there's maybe Pulisic that can do that kind of role, that kind of cam role, or Malik Tillman. Malik Tillman that we saw versus Uzbekistan and Oman. Maybe the idea could be he could be maybe the backup to Gio Reyna if we want to go into having this kind of a way of being able to play. That's worth kind of saying something as well. And then I'll move on to US and Germany. And we did get the first goal. It was a fantastic goal by Pulisic. And then the fun kind of ended there. So they tied it up with Gundogan, kind of a little bit of yeah, I wouldn't say a trash goal, but kind of a cheap goal to give up right before halftime. And then we just kind of we fell apart. And even before the 2 goals that they scored in the second half, we were under immediate pressure. There were a couple of chances where Turner had to make some saves, like really early on. So they finally made it count with Fulkirk, and then Musiala was able to get the third. And you can basically say that 3 of their goals, they had a lucky bounce to go their way. But when I get like deep into the review, I can't necessarily blame that. They were dominant. And I mean, this was a big one coming in. Again, finally a chance to really test ourselves versus a big team. It wasn't a Mickey Mouse. It wasn't a or we didn't go into it with kind of a Mickey Mouse roster or like I said, a Gold Cup roster. So So I think ignoring Germany's run of form because coming into this, that was a bit of a story as well. And there's a reason why they were starting with a different coach this game. So it's the first game with Nagelsmann, and before this they had lost I think 6 of 7, something like that, or they'd gone 7 games without a win. Maybe they had a couple draws in there. Got hammered by Japan, but they had also beaten France for their final game, and you just kind of ignore their run of form. The roster that they put out screamed class player after class player. So they fielded a strong team, at least on the ball. I thought defensively, it was almost like a kind of a FIFA video game lineup because I was like, well, they don't have a defensive midfielder. They don't really have fullbacks. But it didn't really matter. I also thought, man, Hummels is, he's good on the ball, but can Pelican maybe get behind him? Can we maybe do something like that? And we honestly didn't necessarily even try that, which is kind of a maybe a theme. But it was a tale of two halves in some ways, but in other ways, we could have conceded 3 goals in the first half as well. We did play some good stuff, but Germany really did. After about maybe I don't know 12 minutes into the game, Germany's starting position when they were winning the ball back was like, well, it was deep inside our own hand. It was weird. It was also weird because we don't normally play that way. Normally, we I don't remember when we sat back and basically played just straight up for the counter for the entire game. I don't remember us ever sitting back and sitting deep like that. The one time I can think of is maybe versus Canada in the Nations League final, which ended up working out. But as you can see, when I go into the review, is Canada doesn't have Mats Hummels or Rudiger ability to pass through lines. They don't have a Gundogan in the middle or Pascal Gross, and they Canada has Antonio Davies, and they tried Tajon Buchanan, and so they had players on the wing able to hurt us in that Nations League game, but neither of them were good enough to hurt us. Where Musiala, Wirtz, Sane, just were dribble monsters and basically were and wanting us. They were taking us to class in a lot of these 1v1s, and that was a that was a big storyline as well. And then another thing too was I was a bit surprised with Fulkrug. And I know he's on a really good run of form for them. And Fulkrug wasn't necessarily been playing by Hansi Flick. He was trying to go with Havertz or maybe Thomas Muller, and that was maybe a bit of a storyline. But I kind of considered Fulkrug to be maybe just the way he looks. I thought he was going to be kind of like their Olivier Giroud, just someone to throw a just be a big body and then kind of try to be on the end of some crosses, maybe cause some chaos in the box. And they used him a bit like Brighton used Evan Ferguson. They were trying to do wall passes off him. They were trying to make him run into the midfield to be an option, and they were trying to do one touches with him while bringing either a center back out of position or someone else. And it wasn't always coming off. It is worth saying that, but he was showing that ability to do that, and I was a bit surprised by that. And I thought he had a pretty good game. He honestly, he scored. He maybe could have even had a hat trick. He forced a couple really good saves by Matt Turner. Um, but to get to the starting lineup was a story for us. So we saw Joe Scaley played at right back. I was a bit surprised by this because Scaley's finally back. And we have Dest. No Anthony Robinson. That's kind of the reason why I think we saw this. And I don't think Dest is going to be the left back alternative if something happens to Anthony Robinson. Kind of after seeing what I saw versus Ghana, I would like to see maybe Lind or Lund. Um, and I thought Lund was actually one of the few positives that we saw versus him and Malik Tillman were the two names that came to mind versus Oman and Uzbekistan. So yeah, this little experiment with Berhalter playing Dest and on Pulisic's side, and with Tim Ream did not work at all. And yeah, Scally I don't necessarily think had his worst game, but I don't think he was necessarily played best to be on the right either. And then we saw Richards, and then it was Tim Ream and Dest. And Tim Ream I thought this was not the player to play in this game. And then we saw Musa, McKinney, and Gio. And that midfield, at least on paper, doesn't necessarily look to be that poor. I didn't think McKinney actually had a poor game at all. It's worth saying that he was. I kind of went at him a little bit. He's not necessarily being the best defensively. McKinney had 3 or 4 blocks in this game where they probably could have been goals too late in the first half. And he was also doing well to run back and win the ball back. So I shouldn't necessarily go at McKinney there. I just feel like Cardozo is maybe a little bit more of a holder, essentially. But that was a bit of a tweak. But basically, we saw the same thing. We saw a 4-2-3-1, and then with Weah, Balogun, and Pulisic. So it was good to see Gio immediately come in and to not only get a start, to almost play as that kind of 10 roaming figure. And then with Germany, we saw something entirely different than what I was expecting. I mean, the graph says a 4-2-3-1. I think it was a 4-2-3-1 or 4-4-4 in defense. I thought it was honestly a 3-2-2-3. And maybe this is because I've been watching a lot of Liverpool. Maybe I'm just kind of prone to look for this, but I saw Ta, Hummels, and Rudiger basically being three center backs. And then I saw Gross and Gunnigan. And then in front of them was Musiala and Wirtz, almost like double tens, where they could go wherever any kind of space was. They had a free roll. And sometimes they were doing that. Sometimes they were both kind of going maybe to the wide areas, and that left Fulkrug to drop deep and to join into that space, to almost create like a third midfielder essentially. Uh, and then we saw Sane on the left side, and we saw Gosens. I thought Gosens was basically their right winger, not necessarily a fullback. And in defense, he was coming back to be defensive, but he was mostly their guy to just stay on the touchline, provide width, maybe get across here and there. So it was interesting to kind of see that. But and the graphic says a 4-2-3-1, where it says Gosens was basically a fullback. I don't buy that because the way that they had Germany, you could tell Germany had basically their three center backs all spread out, um, and that played a role because we could not get them. We were not pressing their three center backs, so we would allow them to have possession. We were trying to, I think, prevent them passing to Gross and Gunnigan. We were playing narrow as well. We almost had Weah kind of trying to play inside as opposed to like offering some width. So we had Weah, Balogun, and then Gio, McKennie, and Musa. And we were trying to basically prevent them from being able to play through the middle, and they still were able to do it, unfortunately. Early on, so I'll get to the starting, kind of the timeline here. We get Pulisic in behind. It's a great pick out by Weston McKennie. But it's immediately ruled offsides, and I guess they didn't have VAR to look at it. Berhalter actually said later on that this was onside. So that was unfortunate because we basically did what I was kind of expecting us to do with maybe Balogun. We targeted Mats Hummels, thinking if you're going to play high with him, we're going to play a ball over the top. And in the third minute we were able to do it, and we didn't do it again after that. I was a bit flummoxed about that. But in the fifth minute, I have this note. We're sitting off him, and it was a theme all game. Rudiger is getting on the ball inside our own halfway line, inside our own territory, and no one's within 10 yards of him at times. And he has all the time in the world to pick his head up and pick his passes. And you can get away with this, I think, with most teams. And I do think we did this with Canada. I do think we sat off them, and we were like, you're not going to be able to play through us. We're going to get you to turn it over and then break on you. But teams that have center backs that understand how to pass through lines, hit teammates open with crossfield switches, that you give them time, they're going to pick you apart. And I think that's what we saw. I mean, Rudiger had 83 passes and 93% accuracy, and only lost the ball 7 times. Taha had 47 passes and 100% accuracy. Hummels, 59 passes and 96% accuracy, 6 of 5 for long balls. So that's basically how they beat us. They and it was just very weird how we sat off them the entire game. We figured, oh, that's fine. Maybe we figured the danger was Gunnigan and Gross, and they were. But Germany, by being so clever with their center backs, they were still able to feed them in and still hurt us. But here, in the 6th minute, I have Musiala getting to the byline, setting a dangerous cross, and so Musiala has both Destin McKinney in front of him. He's still able to get past both and sending a dangerous ball. But I want to say the first part of this is worth saying, because Sonny gets the ball and carries it to the middle of the field, dragging 2 defenders with him, and then Gunnigan gets the ball and immediately switches the play over to that right side, where we're short defensive cover. But immediately you see Germany being able to think we can get the ball to Sonny on the touchline, and then when he's going to run to the middle of the field. He's going to drag people with him, and that's going to create maybe some mismatches or overload problems that they could exploit, and they did. That's actually where the first goal came from. Um, but here, in the 7th minute, we have 2 scares from playing from the back, so this was also not necessarily good. Germany win the ball back, twice in our box, and, it's a Team Ream mess up first, and then it's a Matt Turner, kinda mess up. And then, I have a chance for us in, kind of the 9th minute, and, we almost get them on a transition. So Weah gets played through and behind. It's a great ball by Giorena here. He makes a run down the wing and does a cut back to Pulisic, who gets contact, but though the ball just kinda goes right to the keeper. But this is kind of ball that Weah plays here that we need more of, and we saw this versus Ghana. But I think it was another example of where Germany, I thought, could be vulnerable versus, I guess, better teams. Because they were playing with a traditional holder and midfielder, and this comes from Germany not being able to handle a loose ball in the middle of the field. Gross tries to get it back, or he tries to stop a Pulisic pass, and the loose ball falls to Musa, who's able to get it quickly to Giorena. And then we have a half chance, and I think it's a good thing to talk about here. So Rudiger is trying to do one of many wall passes that he tries with Volkic, but this one doesn't come off. We're able to break up field. Tim Weah has the ball down the wing. And I kind of like the shape here because, we have Weah, making a run down the wing. We have Pulisic making a run to get in the box from the left side. And we have Balogun there in the middle. And then Gio is cleverly behind Balogun. And I just don't think Weah is maybe used to this. Maybe he didn't realize Gio was in that spot. But a cutback ball to Gio Reyna, top of the box, was on. And instead, he tries to cross it into Balogun or Pulisic, and it doesn't necessarily come off. Or maybe I think he tries to do a cross and it goes out for a corner kick. But Gio Reyna finally, he allows us to play with someone behind a striker that can go for goal himself, maybe thread in something for Balogun like we saw versus Canada. Um, so I liked seeing that. And then we have a big chance for Germany, and so shot strikes the post. This is a great example though of how easily Germany were able to cut through us open. So this comes from our corner kick. So it looks like we have them cornered, and then Rudiger plays a fantastic ball to Florian Wirtz. Wirtz is like Germany's Phil Foden. I'm gonna make 2 comparisons here. Maybe it's horrible, but it's just kind of maybe the way they look at it. The body looks kind of similar, and the way they play, I feel like is similar. So we have Florian Wirtz, Germany's Phil Foden. He collects it under pressure and then finds Musiala, Germany's Jude Bellingham. That could be maybe terrible. I don't know. Musiala then carries it all the way upfield. 2 passes undressed us. And then Musa has no idea what to do. Should he attack Musiala with the ball? Because Wirtz is right by his side, so there's an easy pass from Musiala. Basically, they have a 2v1. In our midfield, we have no cover. This comes because we had everyone pushed back to try because it was our corner kick, essentially. So the pass then goes out wide to Gosens, and then Gosens plays a really nice ball to Florian Wirtz, who continued his run into the penalty area. And then Wirtz has a very good first touch, and then he does like a nice little spin turn to full Tim Ream, and then he lays it off to Pascal Gross, just top of the box. Pascal Gross is made unmarked, and then Gross one times it, and it nearly scores us, and he beats Turner. It just hits off the post. The announcers were blaming this on not having Tyler Adams. This is where Tyler Adams is missing. That's what I was saying. When I watched this back, the thing that I saw was Tim Ream was too afraid to get tight on Musiala. Because if Tim Ream decides to take Musiala out, Musa can handle Wirtz. And instead, he was too afraid of engaging because if Tim Ream messes that up and Musiala goes past him, then Musiala is in on goal. So it's just kind of the one situation that happened when you're playing with a passive center back. And then the first corner kick came in the 12th minute. So Rudiger plays a forward pass to Gundogan's feet. He one times it to Wirtz and then passes it to Sane. Sane salsa dances Dest. Germany actually play a bad pass into the box that Musa first intercepts, but the loose ball falls to Mats Hummels of all people standing on the 35-yard line. So that should not be the case. That's how Germany just don't necessarily feel like there's any threat in behind. Now it is a corner kick. That's the reason why he's up there. But just this was a theme. This was a theme the entire first half. Because Germany's back line was just setting camp. If there was a pond there, they were fishing. They just deep inside our own half. All 3 of them. Ta, Rudiger, and Hummels in a line, just at the 35-yard line. And we can't break out of this. We have a couple chances to do it, and they just keep winning the ball back because they have so many numbers high upfield. Um, and the one chance where we finally maybe got them to think twice about it was Tim Weah was able to speed past the defender, and he plays a great ball to Pulisic. And the only thing is Pulisic doesn't have support here. So I don't think people realized Tim Weah was going to be able to burn past. It's either Gosens or it's Rudiger. No, I think it's Gosens. because when Pulisic gets the ball from Tim Weah, I think he's in. I think he has a chance. I don't necessarily think he has a heavy touch. I think Pulisic has a chance when he collects it to take one more touch and try to sprint towards goal, and instead Rudiger out of nowhere closes him down. Rudiger to me was a cheat code. And again, as the so we're in the kind of the 20th minute here. An observation I have here is I do feel like we're playing differently. Scally is not playing as, kind of a wing back or someone that's playing a really attacking fullback. Oh, yeah, I get, Dest is kind of doing that on the other side, but Scally to me is almost playing like a third center back here. So we have Richards, Ream, and Scally almost like a line of three to maybe help us a little bit with our build up play. Um, I think that was interesting because we did not see that in the second half. We saw Scally playing a little bit more as a traditional fullback in the second half. And it's weird because I think that change actually hurt us because if you think back, there weren't many attacks on the right side in that first half. There were a couple times when they were able to get us on a transition, maybe after we went up on a corner kick essentially, but there was nothing really in open play. But because we had pretty good numbers, we had a pretty good set position to handle them defensively on the right side. That changed in the second half. So I think that was interesting. But another thing too is I thought out of possession we had four players basically marking their near two, and Germany was still able to pass through it with ease. But I thought we sacrificed Tim Weah's width to play very narrow to try to maybe mark either Gosens. He's trying to be in between like Gosens and a Gunnigan or Gris. It wasn't really working out. Uh, but the understanding of Gross and Gunnigan, to recognize just a shift maybe slightly, just 5 yards here and there, to be able to find some gap, and to be able to receive the ball quickly, turn on it, and find someone else's feet before being under pressure. I thought that was impressive. But another thing that was interesting was I didn't really understand McKinney's role out of possession. I was supposed to be, and we had Pulisic trying to mark Pascal Gross instead of maybe trying to run at their center backs, run at someone like Tom. Maybe let McKinney mark at someone like Chris. I thought that was a bit surprising. But another thing we had to think about was I think McKinney was really worried about Dest on Sane. So I think that showed up, and we were not able to man mark them because of that. And if Sane beats Dest, then you have Tim Ream on him, and I don't think they necessarily trusted that as well. So that was showing up. But another thing too was the way Germany were playing Wirtz, Musiala, Gosens, and Fulkrug. So it seemed Wirtz and Musiala were kind of playing essentially almost like double tens, and Gosens was providing their width on the right side. And I thought they were a little imbalanced because Gosens might be able to provide width, but he's not going to be able to take someone on 1v1. He's not to really challenge a Scally or challenge someone and get by them at least consistently, like we were seeing Sane do on Dest. And so I felt like they were kind of missing some of that. The other wrinkle I thought was the way that they were playing Fulkrug, and that's kind of the thing that I mentioned. I thought he was trying to be a little bit more involved in kind of the build up play as a way to maybe the idea was to get a Ream or Richards to kind of run with him to do a wall pass and then maybe play something over the top, and they weren't really falling for it. Uh, because we were not trying to challenge their Fulkrug or anyone essentially. We were our center backs, unlike theirs, were camped up outside our box. We're not moving at all, and again, you can play this way. It's just good teams know how to punish it, and they did. So we have a chance for Fulkrug here, and it's the benefits of having a lot of players upfield. You can win a lot of 50-50 loose balls and keep the pressure on, and we just can't keep hold of the ball. Germany has 3 possessions recycled, basically starting on top of our penalty area. Rudiger wins the ball back. Musiala takes a shot, and then Germany, are starting to finally. Musiala takes a shot, and Germany at this point were kind of starting to play kind of passive. They were passing. They would get into ball into our penalty area, and then they were passing it side to side. They were kind of being hesitant. Finally, Musiala takes a chance, and the rebound falls to Fulkrug, and he has a good shot himself. He forces a pretty good Turner saves because he catches it. If it spills, it's probably a goal as well. And then the 25th chance is when the fun happened. So here we have Pulisic getting the ball. It's a great play by Balogun, and he's trying to buy PK. But it's also a great pass by Gio, but this comes from a corner kick. And Weah then so we're able to break on it, and Weah has a very nice flick to Giorena. And then Gio plays in Balogun. Great ball here. And the one time when we were able to finally get Balogun kind of in behind, and he makes a good decision to square this to Pulisic. Uh, Balogun maybe could have tried to take on Ter Stegen himself, but he made a good play here. And Pulisic's first touch is maybe too heavy. I feel like Pulisic maybe could have first timed this into the net if he wanted to. Instead, he tries to take a touch and then he tries to go around the keeper and drive by the PK. Refs having none of it, and then within I don't know 20 seconds later, Matt Turner's having to make a big save on Fulkrug. So we have the ball and we're trying to cross it. Mats Hummels wins the header, and then from there they're able to break on us. And two passes gets behind us. Starting with Sane, who then finds Wirtz ahead of him, and then Wirtz has Fulkrug outside of him, where Tim Ream again is forced into a 2v1 situation. And then Fulkrug gets it. He fakes a shot, gets Joe Scally to go to the ground. Scally, I thought, did a good job to recover here, but the fake shot gets him to the ground, and then that actually opened up the goal. So it was a good play by Fulkrug, and then Fulkrug isn't able to beat Turner. But on that pass that Sane plays to Wirtz, it takes out Dest, it takes out Chris Richards, it takes out Musa and Scally, all caught out of position, and they could have scored there. But we end up being the team that scores, and within again, this is all happening in the same minute. Pulisic has a wonder goal. And so what happens here is Turner gets it and quickly plays it to Pulisic, and Pulisic plays it to McKennie. McKennie then has a touch to Balogun, and then Balogun lays it off to Pulisic. And what's clever here is Pulisic has the perfect touch to receive this ball. He gets it on the sprint, and he's able to. That touch is what it is able to get in past Jonathan Tah. So Tah's out of the play now, and then Pulisic's able to run into the gap between Hummels and Rudiger. Hummels doesn't know what to do, so he's laying off, and then Rudiger thinks he's actually got Pulisic. But what happens here is Pulisic's able to drop shoulder and cut inside, and Rudiger misses it. And then from there, after that cut inside, Pulisic's got a little momentum, and he's able to air this into the upper 90. And it is a beautiful goal, and the goal is maybe forgotten about because how the rest of the game went. But this was class. This was quite good. This was a good goal. It's good play by Balogun and McKennie in the build-up as well. And yeah, here you're like, oh, we're actually we're doing okay. We're doing okay versus Germany, and we have a half chance here. One of our better moments in the 33rd minute. So we have it comes from Germany kind of misplaying a touch or a pass, and here Wirtz loses the ball in the middle of the field. Gio Reyna is first to it and plays a nice kind of little layoff pass to Tim Weah, and we're able to get Weah to run down the ring and to play a cutback ball, and it just misses Balogun. This is kind of unfortunate. I don't think Weah or Balogun do anything wrong. It's a great run by Balogun, and Weah is just trying to do a cutback, and he doesn't necessarily know where Balogun is, and it's just a little unfortunate. It's a little off, but I like this. I like the vision. I like the thought behind it, and that was kind of all the fun that we really had. So they get the first goal with Gundogan, and it's Sane with a bit of a super dribble, but this comes with a Germany throw in, and they move the ball with their center backs from one side of the field to the opposite, and there's nothing there, and then they get it to Gundogan. Gundogan at this point actually, instead of being in midfield, because Germany is playing such a high defensive line, so I mentioned they have like their three. Sometimes Gundogan was actually dropping in and almost becoming like their fourth center back just to give them a kind of a different number. And because we weren't really pressing high, they were able to kind of do that. And so here, Gundogan's able to unlock the game from a deeper position. And Gundogan sees that the switch to Sane is on, and he plays it. He plays a nice little long ball to Sane, and then from there, Sane has Serginho Dest in a 1v1, and Sane decides to take him for a walk. Sane had done this a few times, getting on the ball on the touchline and cutting inside, running towards the top of the box. But it hadn't necessarily, come off to anything, and we never adjusted to stop it, and it finally burned us. I think Pulisic is just jogging, and he's not marking anyone, and I think that he's just, I think he needs to do a little bit more here, because once Sane cuts inside, Pulisic, I think, needs to meet him. But finally, when we get someone to engage after Sane had basically run from the touchline all the way to the top of the box, it's Gio Reyna and Musa coming at the same time. And unfortunately for us, Sane has really clever feet, and he's able to avoid both of them, kind of doing a quick 1-2 with his left foot to right foot, and he's able to just, I don't know if this is on purpose or not. He's able to pass it to Gundogan. It could have just been like Sane is trying to actually still dribble through this, and it's a heavy touch, but it goes to Gundogan, and then Gundogan immediately one times it back into the box. And I don't know if Gundogan's meaning this or not. And then Sane gets into is able to basically get behind everyone. He's got Turner 1v1, and I think Sane actually screws up here because he has Musiala for a tap in if he just squares it. He tries to go around him. Turner's able to get a hand on this, but it's only a hand, and Gunnigan then is right behind. He's able to follow it up and basically pass it in. And just the slight annoyance to me is just when Sane is able to cut inside, no one is following him. And another thing you see is everyone in the back line, and including McKinney, is more concerned with the runs that Musiala and Wirtz are making, um, um, you know, making into the box. Like basically pushing our back line out, and that's creating a giant little gap. That's creating that space, that opening for Sonny to have the free jog to top of the box. And again, we were just passive, and that's where being passive can hurt you. Um, and just Sonny's able to evade Gio and Musa, and then that instant that the Gunnigan's able to see that he can just do a little one timer, one time quickly to Sane. That is a class goal. And then it looks like we were going to maybe get in 1-1. We were a little on the back foot, and then Moose McKinney had two massive blocks back to back. First on Sane, and then he was able to block Musiala. Sane had a couple of times where he Sane did not respect Sergiño Dest marking him. Just there, I think he was beat 3 times on this little moment. And McKinney was big. McKinney was big here to get those 2 blocks, because I think at least one of them is going to trouble Turner at a minimum. And so the halftime thought is neither team was really controlling the game that well. I mean, Germany, that's what I had, at least watching it real time in the replay. No, Germany absolutely were controlling the game. Germany's positions, they basically were forcing us to start every position we had top of our penalty area, and every position they were basically was inside our own half. So I did think it was a different setup, and I also think it was interesting to see Germany kind of playing a little different as well. But I did feel that they were slightly unbalanced, and it seemed Nagelsmann fixed that, because we saw Wirtz playing a lot more on the right side, and we saw Musa Yala eventually kind of shift over there as well, and that's where they got 2 of their goals. But another thing that happened was, I guess it made sense. We weren't really expecting Giorano to play the full 90, but he only got a half, and Luca De La Torre came on to play for him instead, and this changed us. We went back to kind of our old ways, essentially. We were playing, a flat 3 in midfield, 3 attackers, and then we were trying to play with high fullbacks to kind of get width that way. And no, that did not work out, because in the first half, Scaly was staying back, and he was always in good position just in case something would happen. And that was allowing Way to kind of have his own lane. In the second half, I guess Berhalter told him to maybe be a little bit more involved, to try to go up a little bit more. And anytime we lost the ball, it was uh-oh times. Uh, but so here we have, and it seemed like Germany made some changes too. So it wasn't just the Gosens. I thought one thing that they started to do a little bit more is we saw Rudiger making a little bit more runs with the ball advanced, because we were just sitting off them. We were so concerned of them trying to get Gundogan and Gross kind of the ball. We were just allowing their back line to basically dictate the play, and we never really adjusted to that. And just you see it immediately. So in the 47th minute, there's a chance that comes to Gundogan. It's just a rebound. He's able to get on the loose ball, and he sends it over, but it's just a run by Rudiger, and then a ball carry by Wirtz creates this chance, and then we have a chance for Fulkrug, and it's another good Turner save. And this comes from us losing the ball with Musa and I think De La Torre, and Gundogan intercepts the pass and then runs at our back line, and then he lays it off to Fulkrug, who has a good shot again. Again, Tim Ream is kind of caught in between. Does he run at the ball carrier, or does he run backwards instead? And they were just able to get us in a bad spot. And the sub change, the taking off Gia to switching to Luca Del Torre did not necessarily work out. You saw our positions were just completely off, and then I did feel like Wirtz was all of a sudden starting to be way more involved on the right side, and then we have a chance for Gundogan. Sane skins Dest like 3 times here, 1v1, and basically a chance comes into the box. It's a loose ball again, and then Gundogan tries to volley it and goes over the bar. So we have 3 chances, 3 warning signs here. Something's not working, and then they get the second one with Fulkrug, and basically Germany triangle passes, and then there's a cross that comes in. Musiala does really well to keep this in Germany's control. He has a nice little individual skill here, and then Gosens has a nice clever pass. Gosens gets onto a loose ball and sees Fulkrug's actually behind everyone, and Dest is kind of playing him on sides. I mean, this is probably luck. To be honest, I don't know if Gosens actually means it or he knows that Dest is playing him on sides, but Volker gets the ball and, I don't know, 8 yards away, and he's able to bury it. And then we had a chance with Musa. We had a corner kick where Musa had a header that maybe he could have done better, but that was really it. And Germany really did take control, and then they get the third goal. And, 3 of their goals did feature them kinda getting lucky bounces to go their way, but here, so Musiala gets the ball from Wirtz on the right side, right touchline, and he passes it to Pascal Gross, and then he continues his run to get it back from Gross, and then Musiala basically dances in the box, gets a little break, the ball basically bounces off Tim Ream and finds Fulkrug, and then Fulkrug does really well to square it to Musiala as opposed to going to goal, and, he's able to beat Ream to sliding in. Um, we finally saw some changes though in the 70th minute. So not a lot really went our way, but we did see. I thought we saw some better energy. Aronson came on, Johnny Cardoso came on, and finally we saw them trying to win the ball back more. All of a sudden, we weren't just sitting off them. Finally, a little aggression. We saw Carter Vickers come on for Tim Ream, and the story was we couldn't get them to turn it over. We had no pressure on any ball carrier. I thought that was just weird. And I felt like Scally was playing a little bit higher up in the second half, and that ended up backfiring as well. But two themes, and really all game, especially in the second half. Germany passed through us for fun, and I thought Rudiger was too many times he was getting the ball and starting possessions deep inside our own end, and we just had no one near it. It was just weird, and our back line was exposed as well. Again, I do think Tim Ream shouldn't get necessarily more caps because it was just remarkable to see his starting position versus say Hummels and Rudiger. And it's not even just like a pacing, like how you don't think Hummels has a lot of pace either. It was just Tim Ream's first instinct was to run backwards and be passive, and it hurt. So it was. There are a couple takes here. I mean, it's a different thing to go from playing teams where you're the dominant team. This wasn't like us playing a Caribbean side where we have the ball and we just can't. We're struggling to beat through a deep block. Here we got outclassed and we couldn't get them to turn it over. It was just we cowered essentially. I did feel like the Gio's Reyna sub changed a little bit, but Turner was forced to make a number of saves in the first half. This could have been ugly as well as good as we somewhat thought we played in the first half. I mean, they had 5 big chances. They had 19 shots and 7 on target, and basically they stopped playing after the third goal. We had 6 shots and 3 on target. They had 572 passes with 92% accuracy. And in some ways, I'm a little bit more inclined to praise Germany than necessarily bash the U.S. or Berhalter. Um, I mean, you saw the starting lineup. And truthfully, I was a little worried about Tim Ream. I was weird to. I didn't understand necessarily Dest and Scally playing on opposite sides. I thought that was a little weird. Maybe he thought Dest would be a better defender on Sane, and that didn't work out at all. And Scally actually plays in the German league, plays in the Bundesliga. Maybe he sees Scally. Maybe he sees Sane. Actually, I thought that was kind of a mess up. But uh, other than that, at kickoff, I was a little bit more optimistic, kind of seeing the lineup, seeing how Germany weren't necessarily playing with a defensive midfielder. The fullback itch situation. It was hard to kind of see what kind of formation they were going to play at start of it because I didn't necessarily think Todd was a fullback either. And no, Germany outclassed us. It is worth kind of saying that. I mean, it's kind of similar to what we had with Ghana, where a team you can only play a team that you're against, and here we made it easy for Germany, but at the same time they still had to make those passes, they still had to make those decisions, they still had to have those clever touches to make it count, and they did. For us to get started, we had Gio Reyna, I did feel like was positive. The only negative I had was felt like he maybe was needed to do a little bit more to. We were struggling to build possession from the back. I, the announcers were saying they want Gio Reyna to always be forward, to kind of be like an option, maybe like a second striker. I don't like that at all. I want him to maybe copy how Gunnigan was playing, because I feel like Gio Reyna has way more touch and decision making than a lot of our other midfielders. But that said, in the versus Ghana game, someone like Cardozo was able to find Gio Reyna the ball. The Musa I thought was a little bit more comfortable playing with Cardoso than necessarily McKennie, and so maybe two ways to look at that. And McKennie was a positive to me. I don't necessarily even know if he should necessarily be a starter now, but he was doing great. He was shacking runners. He was quite doing good. He was doing what a midfield 8 should do. I just don't think he's a 6. Uh, And then what happened in the second half? The Gio Reyna was subbed. Luca coming in. It wasn't a like for like replacement. Maybe they tried to do McKennie as kind of a double a 10. I don't necessarily think so. I think they basically tried to kind of do 3/8 essentially, and it didn't work out. And we couldn't turn them over or win the balls back. We didn't have any second balls, and our starting position was poor. And I even had this as a note before last night is I wanted to see Johnny Cardozo start for Scana, and it's good because we saw that we saw he was good because Tyler Adams might be missed. We need to not necessarily go in thinking we're always going to have him because this is an issue now, and it was an issue before this year. We've known about his injury issues even as a youngster, and now it seems to just kind of be, even more of a thing. It was good to have him in the World Cup, but I thought he was also overplayed in the World Cup. We didn't have anyone that could come in and maybe give him some rest, give him some minutes. So we need to at least nothing else build some depth in that position. I don't necessarily know if it's Musa. Musa to me is at least as a single six didn't necessarily look comfortable with a double guy next to him in a pivot. He did look comfortable. So uh, it's only a friendly, so there's no reason to necessarily throw rip up the script and just be like, oh, we uh, everything is horrible, which is good because again, I didn't necessarily I'm not one of those that wanted Berhalter to be back, um, but at least to me I did feel like there were some signs of improvement, some signs of change. We'll have to see, but if Berhalter is going to welcome back Gio Reyna, uh, Tim Ream is 36 now. This is before seeing Miles and Miles Robinson and Chris Richards, which did look good for Ghana. Ghana didn't necessarily test them that much. I was wondering, is it time to call John Brooks back? I watched a game. I think it was versus Dortmund. It might have been Hoffenheim or maybe it was Hanover. And John Brooks actually had he was maybe at fault for an own goal. But after that, he was something like 13 of I don't know 15 for headers. He just won every single header, and he didn't misplay a ball. He was very very good doing that. Um, he can play in a high line. He's only 31 or 32 now. I would like Berhalter to suck it up and bring him back into camp. He's our best passing center back, in my opinion, that we have. And, I it's probably too late. Maybe that bridge is burned, but I just that was what I was having. That was my kind of thought is we're playing Tim Ream over someone like a Brooks. Uh, so maybe we can just kind of build some depth with Cameron Carter-Vickers and a Chris Richards and uh, a Miles Robinson. Um, because I don't necessarily want to see Walker Zimmerman all of a sudden get some caps after he comes back, and that's probably going to be a case as well. But I didn't feel like we were using Balogun properly. I did feel like he was making good runs, and he had 0 shots and only 17 touches, and I didn't feel like that was enough. And then I thought Pulisic needed to do more defending. He was just standing around, and I thought that was a bit of an issue. But it was just weird because we did not press them. So a topic here I have is why was this different? And we didn't press them or even try to play tight on them, and you can't do that versus a team that talented. We were ball watching, and they were able to get behind us with some clever runs. We were some clever carries, and yeah, we were just beaten by a better team. Um, and yeah, I did feel like it was a cruel wake up call. So this isn't Canada or Mexico where you can just kind of try to maybe sit in a shell, maybe expect them to misplay a pass. Um, even though that said, Mexico actually tied Germany yesterday, so maybe Mexico's getting better. I didn't actually watch the game, so I can't say. Uh, but it was maybe naive to think that they wouldn't be able to play through us, and that was a massive mistake. The line splitting passes that their center backs were able to do, they weren't. They're that was the difference. To be honest, seeing Rudiger and Hummels were able to be able to pass it through the middle, to be able to find feed, to be able to find those gaps, and be able to keep basically progress the ball that way. And they were using Falkirk to kind of do it. And we weren't. It was surprising that we were just kind of allowing that. And I did have a take that I didn't know how much of this was on Burkle, and I was a little indifferent here. And I usually love bashing him, so and I'm not necessarily a fan of him, but I did feel like it was just kind of a wake up call. I think that was good. Um, I didn't understand necessarily us setting off them and not pressing them. Like usually, you don't think you think of a Berhalter side. That's not usually what we do. But it is hard to press and play a high line with slow center backs, and I think just Tim Ream was worried about that, and I think the whole team just kind of played with that kind of mindset. So I think that that showed up, and then with on the flip side with Germany, 2 things can be true. We were poor and they were good. Um, I just I watched how England I watched England play versus, it wasn't Italy, it was their friendly game. I think it was Australia. And, I watched the Netherlands, game versus it might have been Greece, and the way that they were moving the ball, the way that everything was much slower, maybe more predictable, more safe. People turning into this game to watch the US, I think saw a good German side, ignoring their run of form, because I did feel and I think we saw some changes from Flickball. Fulkrug was leading the line, not Havertz. Gunnigan and Gross being played. Uh, Ta coming in, Wirtz and Musiala together. Um, what's funny is I think we saw the B team come on in the second half. We saw Brandt and Havertz come on, and I think maybe the one difference was maybe Emre Can would maybe come in as opposed to Gross. But this was different than what we saw versus with Flick. And again, 92 pass accuracy for a international side, and it wasn't just side to side stuff. They were just they had us camped, and they were basically dragging us out of positions. They were good. And I was jealous of the passes that Rudiger, Gunnigan, Gross, Hummels were making. You watch so many games, and it feels you almost like yell at TV because you'll be like, "A pass is on," and no one wants to play it because oh, it's risky, maybe a bad touch, maybe it's a turnover in the middle field. You don't want to turn the ball in the middle of the field, so they'll go long, or they'll go out on the wings. If you lose the ball on the wings, it's a safer position. Germany were very, very good at being able to just kind of just operate through our middle, even though we were trying to crowd it. We had 4 guys trying to prevent that. So that's why I came away impressed. Fulkrug has 8 goals and 10 caps, and it felt like he could have had a hat trick, and I liked how they were using him. And then Musiala and Sane just kind of toyed with us. Unreal ball control by both, and neither fullback were able to handle them 1v1. Um, I think it was just a good exhibition of a first touch, playing under pressure, passing between lines, and doing flicks to advance ball to teammates, and moving with the ball in control, and making right decisions to teammates. Again, they weren't just passing it sideways. So the only negative I had was, can you do this for an elite team? Can you do this for maybe someone you're going to see in a knockout round in a Euros because they haven't been if Germany wasn't necessarily hosting the Euros, I don't know if they'd be able to, their run of form under Flick, I don't know if they would have qualified, uh, because they've been they've been struggling. And you look, Flick, Nagelsmann only had 1 camp, with this team, but he went in this without playing with almost not a care in the world. This was a kind of a video game kind of lineup. It was very attack minded, aggressive center backs playing very very high up. So can you get away with not having a defensive midfielder when you have your center backs almost like your ball winners because you're playing so high up and you're not really worried about a ball over the top because you've got center backs that can make those runs in behind and recover as well. I don't know. So I do feel like they maybe need a DM to win you the ball back to stop those transition moments or protect that back line. Maybe that's what Chan can offer as opposed to Gross. I don't necessarily know how many games you can rely on Mats Hummels as well. That's what's kind of saying that. Apparently, uh, Shula played instead of him versus Mexico, and maybe that didn't necessarily work out. So maybe you do need to rely on Hummels. I don't know. But just the way that Rudiger and Hummels were stepping high, trying to win the ball back, trying to block those passes really high up. It was striking because we didn't do that in this game. We did do versus Ghana. Um, and then just kind of I guess a final a lasting an ending topic is I want to talk about it again again. It's a great reminder of what Man City are missing. Just because the way they played him was is worth highlighting as well. So he was sometimes forming a diamond shape with their back three, and you saw him sometimes in line with the 3 center backs, almost forming a back four. We could not mark him to save our lives, and he opened us up from deep. And then when Germany had the ball in our defensive third, he was popping up and making clever late unmarked runs in the penalty area and being dangerous as well. And again, Germany like formed like a diamond shape to kind of, a passing shape, with Rudiger and Gross ahead of him, or with Gunnigan and then like Rudiger and then Gross was kind of the head of the diamond. Top was just kind of playing out wide, almost like their makeshift fullback for defensive duties. So the shape was a little unique, and they destroyed us with elite ball carrying and in our penalty area and movement. And again, when you force the initiative, this is a take I had is you can make a defense when making a defense ask questions, making them shift over, making when you commit numbers high in the penalty area, you can get rewarded with some bounces, and that's what happened on 3 goals. And so how good they look after just one session. This was impressive, but apparently drawing Mexico, a team that's had some struggles themselves, that could maybe be something to look at. I looked; they only had 9 shots. I was surprised by that. Versus Mexico, so I didn't watch the game. I don't know how the game went. But they had 550 passes with 90+% accuracy again. So I was a little surprised. I think I saw Mueller started as opposed to Fulkrug. Fulkrug came on in the second half and got a goal. So maybe Germany took advantage of Mexico. Mexico took advantage of Germany not playing with a DM or with some fullbacks. They don't have Kimmich. It's worth kind of saying that. So I don't necessarily know if Gosens is necessarily the answer for what they were doing. But that said, there's no reason necessarily look down on them. I think this was more a case of Germany kind of saying we can still be good, and we can still be good because we've got a player like Gunnigan. And Yeah, or and Musiala and Sane and Wirtz. It's been a lot of talk, I guess, in German press. Can you play all 3 of those players together? Um, Here they showed they could. So that's the reason why I feel like you maybe need to find a way to get some kind of defensive-minded player in there instead. I know Nemencha is German and is playing for Dortmund. He's not necessarily getting a lot of minutes. Maybe we'll finally see him get a cap. Maybe we'll see him try it. That is kind of it. And that's it for the rundown of these 2 games. I don't necessarily know how I did for time. It's probably extensive. And then I'll be back next week to talk about what happens in the EPL. So finally done with the break. It wasn't that long, but it was uh, it was interesting to only wake up Saturday and not necessarily have games. So I'll be waking up this Saturday because Liverpool open up versus Everton and might have to do it without Andy Robinson. I think he dislocated or did something to his shoulder, and might be some talks that he might have to have some surgery. So not great, not the best international break for Liverpool, and I don't necessarily know how long Gakpo is going to be out, so we might not necessarily see him. But apparently, one positive is Darwin Núñez apparently dominated Brazil. So hopefully he'll be able to come in to come versus Everton and be really hyped up, be super confident, and continue that. And that'll be it. So I'll be back next week to talk about that. And until then, you stay squatting and stop recording.